This is a fall harvest collage. It features a scarecrow as the center of interest or focal point of the composition. To get started, I'm going to take a piece of construction paper and a paper bag and a piece of green construction paper. You can hold your paper either vertically or horizontally, but you'll need to make sure that your papers are wide enough if you're holding it horizontally to go all the way across your paper. Some of your papers you may need to trim. So I'm going to make a mark on my paper bag and I'm going to cut off the end. And if you were holding it vertically, then you would be cutting off a much bigger portion of the paper bag. The next thing I need to decide is whether or not I want to have my crop in the front of my picture or in the back of my picture. I can either put hills or grass in the back or grass in the front. I'm going to glue my crop in the background. So I'm going to put some drops of glue on the back of my brown paper. I'll leave a little bit of blue at the top for the sky. And then I'm going to overlap a piece of green. I think I'll cut the edge so it's not quite so tall. And maybe make it a little less straight across the top as well. You could even fringe the top edge if you want to make it look like blades of grass. And now I'll glue that in place, putting a few drops on the ends, in the middle, and in between. Next, we're going to glue some strips of paper to look like things growing in the field. You could make your strips of paper going vertically up and down on the field, horizontally across the field, or diagonally on an angle on your field. You can either use a piece of construction paper, or if you don't have construction paper, you could use scraps from magazine photos, newspapers, or even sales circulars. You want to tear some strips of paper to go across your field. I'll make this one a little bit skinnier. And again, if you wanted yours to go across, you'd need a bigger piece of paper to make them fit the full width of your paper. You can either make them horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. So try out a couple different things and see which way you like them best. When you're happy with it, put a couple drops of glue on each piece of paper and glue them in place. Next I'm going to add my scarecrow. If you have popsicle sticks at home, you could use those for the armature of your scarecrow. If you don't have popsicle sticks, some scraps of paper will do, or you could even draw some lines for where your scarecrow shirt and pants are going to be glued. I'm going to glue some popsicle sticks into my picture. That'll take a little bit extra glue since they're a little bit thicker. Now for your clothing, you could either use scraps of paper again, fabric scraps if you have them, or you could cut out some photos from magazines and use pieces of magazine photos to build your scarecrow's clothing. I have cut a V-shape piece of paper for my scarecrow's pants and a T-shaped piece of fabric for my scarecrow's shirt. I'm going to glue those in place. And you could use a piece of fun foam or a button or a scrap of construction paper for your scarecrow's head. I've cut a semicircular piece of paper for some hair, and I'm going to fringe that like I did the blades of grass and curl it a little bit on the ends. I'll use a marker to add some eyes, a nose, and a mouth to my scarecrow. Give the mouth some stitches. Next, I'm going to put something in my field growing. You could add whatever you'd like to your field. You could add some pumpkins, like I've done on some of my collages, or you could add corn stalks or flowers or some other type of vegetable growing in your field. Again, you can use whatever materials you have at home. I have some scraps of fun foam, so I'm going to use those for my pumpkins. You could use scraps of paper, you could use buttons, whatever you have available. I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to make some vines growing from my pumpkin to the field. And I might make some leaves on some of the green portions. And draw some of the vein lines. Last, I need to decide what I'd like to have in my background. On this collage, I had a barn and a silo. And on this collage, I had a pickup truck. And on this collage, I had a house far away in the background. I've made a house for this one, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in the background of my composition. And I can take a piece of white paper and tear some irregular shapes to make some clouds. You could add a sun, you could add birds, you could add wind lines, whatever you'd like to add in your background. When your collage is dry enough, you could take a marker or crayon and you could draw some details. I'm going to add some birds in my sky. And I'm going to add some lines on my pumpkin to look like the ribs of the pumpkin. If I make my lines curve towards the outside, it will make my pumpkin look more three-dimensional or rounded. You could add whatever you'd like to your finished composition. Try to think of things that you would see in the fall. You might want to include things like a haystack or leaves of different colors. Be creative. I can't wait to see what you come up with.